It was supposed to be a normal morning on live television. The View was packed with energy, laughter, and the usual celebrity charm. But what happened next turned into one of the most talked about TV moments of the year. Viewers across the country could not believe what they were watching. Two powerful women, Megyn Kelly and Meghan Markle, clashed live on air, and it did not take long before the entire internet exploded. Clips of the exchange went viral within hours. Millions of people shared their reactions online, calling it The View's most shocking episode ever. On one side of the table sat Meghan Markle, confident, polished, and smiling as she spoke about her new charitable projects. On the other side sat Megyn Kelly, the outspoken journalist known for asking the questions most people are afraid to ask. When these two worlds collided, it created television history. The cameras captured every second of it, from the polite smiles to the moment the tension finally broke. People were not just watching a disagreement. They were watching a battle between public image and accountability. Megyn came prepared. She was calm, focused, and ready to challenge the narrative. Megyn seemed composed at first, but behind her calm tone, the cracks started to show. The atmosphere changed and the audience could feel it. What started as a friendly discussion quickly turned into a confrontation that no one expected. This is not gossip. It is a lesson in accountability, power, and what happens when image meets reality. Before we go any further, make sure you hit subscribe right now. This story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about media manipulation and power. The studio of The View was full of its usual bright lights and cheerful energy. The audience was excited, the music was upbeat, and the hosts were chatting casually before the cameras started rolling. Everything looked normal, calm, and well-rehearsed. Viewers tuning in expected another smooth, entertaining morning show. No one in that studio had any idea that they were minutes away from witnessing one of the most talked-about moments in television. Megyn Kelly had been invited as a guest host for the day. Her arrival brought a different kind of energy to the set. People knew her reputation. She was sharp, confident, and known for asking the questions that others often avoided. Megyn had built her career on challenging powerful figures and holding them accountable. She walked onto the stage composed and ready, giving a polite smile to the crew and co-hosts before taking her seat. Everyone sensed that her presence meant the tone of the show might be a little different that day. Then came Meghan Markle. Dressed in a soft-toned outfit and radiating charm, she entered with her usual grace. She smiled, waved to the audience, and spoke warmly about her passion for helping others. She was there to discuss philanthropy, empowerment, and positivity. Megyn was known for her control over her public image. Every word, every gesture carefully thought out. To most people she looked untouchable, always in charge of the narrative. But as Megyn and Megyn sat across from each other, something in the air shifted. Their smiles were polite, but their eyes told a different story. The calm atmosphere of The View began to feel tense, as if everyone sensed something unexpected was about to happen. Before we move on, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment for updates on the full story of what really went down that day. The segment began like any other celebrity interview. Megyn smiled warmly at the hosts and began talking about her latest initiatives. Her tone was polished and graceful. She spoke about empowerment, kindness, and helping others find their voice. Her words sounded perfect on paper, smooth and inspiring, but somehow they felt distant. The audience listened politely, nodding and clapping, but the conversation felt rehearsed, almost like a speech. Megyn Kelly sat quietly, listening carefully. She let Megyn finish her sentences before leaning forward slightly. Her voice was calm but direct as she asked, "Can you tell us exactly which organizations you are working with right now?" The question sounded simple, yet it landed with weight. The room grew a little quieter. Megyn's confident smile froze for a split second. She glanced down, adjusted her hair, and gave a pleasant laugh before responding. "Well, we are supporting several groups that focus on mental health and women's education globally," she said. It sounded polished, but it was vague. There were no names, no numbers, no clear details. Megyn nodded slowly, still polite. "That sounds wonderful," she replied. "But could you give us an example of one specific partnership or program that your foundation is directly funding right now?" That was when the tone began to change. The audience shifted slightly in their seats. Megyn's smile thinned. She repeated a few of the same phrases about empowerment and awareness, but there was still no clear answer. The polite laughter that followed her response felt forced. Megyn kept her composure, flipping through her notes as if she already knew the answer. Her questions became slightly sharper, still respectful but more specific. Each one made it harder for Megyn to stay in control of the conversation. It was the first sign that this interview would not go as smoothly as planned. The tension was subtle, but everyone could feel it. What started as a friendly talk about charity was beginning to feel like the start of something much bigger. Megyn sat back in her chair for a moment, then calmly reached for a folder beside her. The audience watched as she opened it, flipping through a few pages with steady hands. Her tone was neutral, almost professional, but everyone could sense what was coming. "I was looking into some of the numbers from your foundation," Megyn began, her eyes glancing down at the papers. "According to public filings, over $13 million have been raised under your name, but less than 30% has actually gone to charity work. Can you explain where the rest of the money went?" The words hit the room like a sudden gust of wind. The audience fell silent. Megyn shifted slightly in her chair, keeping her smile, but her expression had lost its warmth. She started to speak carefully, choosing each word with precision. "Well, as you know, there are administrative costs involved in running large organizations. There is private work and behind-the-scenes coordination that the public does not always see." Megyn nodded slowly. "Of course, every foundation has costs. But I noticed several payments listed to PR agencies and media consultants totaling nearly $2 million. Are those part of the charitable efforts?" A low murmur moved through the audience. Some people exchanged glances. The tension was thick now. Megyn tried to maintain composure. "Public awareness is a form of impact," she replied. "We believe in using media to bring attention to causes that matter." Megyn looked up again, her tone still steady but sharper now. "So more was spent on publicity than on the causes themselves?" The co-hosts began to fidget in their seats, sensing the discomfort growing on set. The live audience sat frozen. You could almost hear the sound of cameras zooming in as the producers whispered nervously behind the scenes. Megyn attempted to steer the conversation back to her message about hope and global understanding, but it was clear she had lost control of the narrative. Each time she tried to expand, Megyn calmly brought her back to the numbers, the reports, and the facts that were now in front of everyone. There was no shouting, no chaos, just a cold and quiet exposure. Every figure Megyn mentioned felt like another spotlight turning on. The charm of Megyn's words could no longer compete with the clarity of the data. The audience could feel the power shifting, and for the first time Megyn's carefully built image started to crack under the weight of simple truth. Megyn took a deep breath and straightened in her chair. Her tone softened, but there was a clear edge to it. "I feel like this is turning into an attack," she said. "It seems that no matter what I do, people twist my intentions. I am here to make a difference, not to defend myself on television." Megyn kept her gaze steady. Her voice stayed calm, controlled, and almost gentle. "This is not personal," she said. "This is accountability. When public figures ask people to trust them, transparency comes with that responsibility." The room grew heavier. Megyn's smile returned, but it looked practiced. She tried to redirect the conversation. "What matters most is the impact. The children we help, the women we support, the stories we share." Megyn nodded slightly. "That sounds nice," she replied. "But impact is measured by action, not by words. Look at people like Oprah or Ellen. They have built foundations that deliver results year after year. Their records are public, their numbers clear. People respect that because it shows consistency. What I am asking is simple. Where is the proof that your work is doing the same?" There was a brief silence. Joy tried to jump in with a lighthearted comment to ease the tension. "Well, I think everyone on this table believes in doing good," she said with an uneasy laugh. Whoopi nodded, hoping to move the conversation along. But Megyn was not finished. With a polite smile, she leaned forward again. "I respect the message," she said. "But when the message is built on public donations and influence, clarity is not an option. It is necessary." Megyn's expression changed. The frustration showed now, faint but visible. Her hands moved restlessly as she tried to form her next sentence. The control she had at the start of the show was slipping. The audience could feel the difference. Megyn's calm truth was cutting through every layer of practiced charm, and there was nowhere left to hide behind words. The tension in the studio had reached its breaking point. Megyn shifted in her seat, her face tight with frustration. The calm, polished composure she carried at the start of the interview was gone. Her hands moved restlessly, and her voice rose just slightly as she said, "You clearly have personal issues with me, Megyn. This feels like an attack, not a conversation." Megyn Kelly stayed perfectly still. Her tone did not change. She simply replied, "When you cannot answer, you attack the question." The words hung in the air like a challenge no one could ignore. The audience reacted instantly. Some gasped. Others clapped, half in shock and half in agreement. The co-hosts looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment play out. Meghan's face flushed. She tried to laugh it off, but the sound felt forced. "This is not journalism," she said sharply. "This is bullying dressed up as tough questions." Meghan leaned back slightly, her voice steady. "It is accountability, Meghan. Everyone wants the praise, the spotlight, and the sympathy. But leadership means facing the hard questions too." That was it. Meghan pushed back her chair and stood up. The sound of it scraping against the floor echoed across the studio. The audience fell silent again, watching her gather herself. "I will not sit here and be disrespected," she said, turning toward the exit. Cameras followed her as she walked off stage, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. One of the co-hosts called after her, trying to calm the situation, but she did not turn back. The producers looked frozen, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the scene unfold. Meghan waited a few seconds before speaking again. She turned toward the audience, her tone still even and professional. "This is why conversations matter," she said. "It is not about tearing someone down. It is about asking real questions, the kind we owe to anyone who holds influence." The crowd responded with cautious applause. Some people looked uneasy, others impressed. Meghan gave a small nod and said, "Accountability is not cruelty. It is honesty. And sometimes, honesty makes people uncomfortable." As the camera slowly panned out, the mood in the studio remained electric. Meghan was gone, but the echo of that exchange lingered in the air. It was the kind of television moment no one forgets. The clip would be replayed everywhere, becoming the symbol of a clash between image and truth. As the tension began to settle, the camera lingered on Meghan's empty chair. The space she left behind said more than words could. The audience stayed quiet, still processing what they had just witnessed. Megyn Kelly looked toward that empty seat for a moment, then turned back to the viewers with a calm, steady voice. "Asking for transparency is not cruelty," she said. "It is respect for the truth." Her tone was clear, without anger or pride. We cannot praise people simply because they speak well or look good doing it. We have to ask what they have done, what they have built, and who they have helped. The studio lights softened. The audience seemed to lean in, listening closely now that the shouting was over. Meghan continued, "Public figures are not untouchable. When they ask for trust, we have the right to ask for proof. That is not hate. That is responsibility." The camera cut again to the empty chair, then back to the audience. A few people nodded quietly. The co-hosts stayed subdued, avoiding eye contact, each one aware that they had just witnessed something bigger than a TV argument. Meghan folded her notes and placed them aside. "If we stop asking questions because someone looks offended, we stop holding anyone accountable," she said. "Real change does not come from perfect speeches. It comes from action, and from being open about the results of that action." The studio filled with a soft wave of applause. It was not loud or dramatic, but genuine. People understood the message. The clash that began as confrontation had ended as a lesson. As the camera slowly zoomed out one last time, the empty chair stayed in focus for a few seconds longer. It was a quiet image, a reminder that truth always stays, even when comfort leaves. Meghan's words lingered in the air, "We cannot fix what we refuse to face." And with that, the show faded to black, leaving the audience with a sense of closure, reflection, and the unmistakable weight of truth. Within hours of the broadcast, clips of the exchange flooded social media. Hashtags like #Megyn's Meghan, #The View Meltdown, and #Accountability Matters climbed to the top of trending lists. Every few seconds, new reactions poured in from viewers around the world. Some called it a masterclass in journalism. Others accused Kelly of ambushing her guest. The internet had turned the studio showdown into a global debate. On X, opinions split sharply. One post read, "Meghan just asked what everyone else was afraid to ask. That is real journalism." Another countered, "This was public humiliation, not accountability." Influencers, journalists, and even celebrities joined in. Screens were filled with side-by-side clips, reaction videos, and heated comment threads. Morning talk shows picked it up the next day. Podcasts dissected every sentence and gesture. News outlets ran headlines like, "Megyn Kelly exposes Meghan Markle's charity claims," and "Television turns tense as The View implodes on air." Even international media in London, Sydney, and Toronto replayed the footage, each giving their own spin. Experts weighed in too. Media analysts described it as a turning point in celebrity accountability. Public relations specialists warned that it could redefine how high-profile figures handle scrutiny. The clash between two powerful women had become a larger story about influence, image, and truth. As the days passed, the noise did not fade. The The conversation had shifted from drama to meaning. People were no longer only asking who was right or wrong. They were asking what honesty really looks like in a world built on public image. In the end, it was never just about one interview. It was about truth versus perception, questions versus comfort, and what happens when image meets accountability on live television. At the end of the day, one thing became clear. Truth will always outshine image. What we saw on that stage was not just a clash between two powerful women. It was a rare moment where words, facts, and reputation collided in real time for everyone to see. Now the question is, what do you think was the most devastating moment in this entire showdown? Was it the silence when Megyn could not answer? Was it the moment Kelly pulled out the receipts? Or was it when Megyn refused to back down and stood firm on accountability, no matter how uncomfortable it became? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Do you believe Megyn was treated unfairly, or do you think Kelly was simply asking the questions that needed to be asked? This story has divided audiences around the world, and your opinion matters in that conversation. If you found this breakdown powerful, make sure you subscribe right now. We bring you the stories that others avoid. The ones that challenge the headlines and reveal what is really happening behind the cameras. Because when it comes to power, influence, and truth, there is always more beneath the surface. So join the community, share your thoughts, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Because sometimes the real story is not what is said on camera. It is what gets exposed when the lights are the brightest, and the truth has nowhere left to hide.